Welcome to FMA Discussion. This is episode 224, and tonight we have the privilege of having husband and wife, David and Lynda Hatch. This is our second time having a husband and wife on, and I'm excited. They're going to be sharing their FMA journey from the ensemble blend all the way up to through Lameco, Balintawak. There's some Ceylon in there. A very impressive list he has as far as accomplishments and teaching ranks and all that from Ligo Fong, Celot. I think I saw some shoot wrestling in there and some other stuff and all that. So very, very impressive as far as what I saw on the website. So we're going to be jumping in. If you are watching, please tell us where you're watching from. Smash that like button. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to FMA Discussion, where you can see this episode and other great ones. So thank you. I appreciate you both coming on. Thank you.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Oh, yeah. Happy to hear you.
Am I sounding okay? Sounds all right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. Perfect. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, coming in loud and clear. So yeah, we're going to jump right into it. I mean, like I said, like I just mentioned, you got a really extensive, background and all that. But so far as the show, we definitely got to bring some of that up. But obviously, we're going to kind of stay in the FMA lane, for the most part. But definitely want to, let the folks know that, you got a pretty impressive resume there. So it sounds like you started, like most of us, kind of in the ensemble blend. My ensemble blend came through the Vunak lineage and all that. So let's hear from you guys, as far as what made you seek out FMA in the first place and what the first experience.
Well, it was interesting because we actually started karate years ago in 1969. That's where we met each other in a karate club. Oh, and we got our black belts through that. And we wanted to study further. Of course, I was a big Bruce Lee fan. Both of us were. And so not Bruce Lee, but Guru Dan was coming out to Michigan, in Lansing, Michigan, which is about an hour's drive for us. And there was a guy named Dan Timlin who recently passed away. He was bringing him out. So we thought, well, that's the closest we'll get to Bruce Lee. But also he's got this Filipino martial arts. And we thought, well, Lynda wanted to be able to learn how to handle the knives, that's what she was more concerned about. Yeah. So we thought, why not? Let's go check it out. So we did. And the seminar was, of course, 2 days, a weekend. But it was 8 hours each day. And that was with Guru Dan and Larry Hartzell both. So you talk about brain, big brain overload. We were brain dead by half the Saturday, No. And he had double stick, single stick, stick and dagger, and then the trapping and grappling and everything. And so it was really good. I mean, we were really impressed. Here we were, black belts, and we're thinking, boy, look how much we really don't know. It was a tremendous amount of material. So that's what got us going. And then we took some private lessons from Dan Timlin. And then we kept going to the seminars for Guru Dan and kept going. And eventually we decided that we'd get into Guru Dan's program. And that was later. We met Guru Dan in a seminar in 1985.
Oh, so early. Okay.
So then at that point, we just kept on going. And while we're at Guru Dan, then he starts to introduce us to other, martial artists, or Savat, and then, of course, Larry Hartzell with the grappling. And who else? It wasn't until later, back to the 90s, that we actually got introduced to Edgar Saliti with the Lameco. But we did have a little taste of Pikiti Tersha from Bill McGrath from some seminars. And of course, Guru Dan had a little bit of all those arts anyway, when he
within the blend. Yeah,
the blend like that. And so that was exciting just to learn all those different methods. And at about the same time, when I was during the Pikiti, actually the Lameco, it was a guy named Keith Watoski, who's out of Waterloo, Indiana, who's also a full instructor under Guru Dan. He was bringing out Punang Guru Edgar Saliti. And so we went there to the seminar to see him. And from that time, Lynda and I and one of my other students, Chris, we just kept going to the seminars. And Edgar is having seminars both in Ohio, and with Keith Witowski in Indiana. So those two, we just kept going to those two seminars all the time.
I just remember when you mentioned like being overwhelmed, like I remember Larry Hartzell used to come out to Connecticut via Ron Kowski. I just remember being lost, like trying to keep up with notes, and just like it was futile. I mean, like I'd be starting to write something and they would be like on something else. It just was a joke. Like there's just no way I was recording like all that information. You know what I mean? It just was like, I just remember just sitting there like, it's like throwing sand at an ocean. I mean, I just couldn't keep up. I just couldn't, you know what I mean? I was just,
especially when it has to do with grappling. How do you write down?
For me, I got to be honest. It was everything.
It's a lot.
Yeah,
it was tough for us too, because you got to remember, Linda's she's deaf. So she's not going to hear what Guru Dan explains, or any of the instructors, what they're explaining. She just goes visually by what they're doing.
Right.
So the challenge we had at the beginning of going to seminars was Lynda would see what Guru Dan's demonstrating, but Guru would also demonstrate what you should not do. And so Lynda, not knowing, she thinks that's what we're supposed to do. So we start to work out, and I said, no, it's this way. And of course, we're wasting time because you only have like 3 minutes or so to do the technique.
Yeah, before you go into something else, right?
Oh God, So it was a little tough at first, and I had to really take best notes I could, and then we go home and try to practice it. It took a little while before we were able to get it, and I was able to help her.
Yeah.
But
I took 2 years.
yeah, she took 2 years off originally in the late 80s. So I could go to the seminars and learn all the material. Then when I get home, I'd show her, and then she started coming with me.
Okay.
Yeah. She'd be there to watch, as I'm going to seminar, but she didn't participate until later.
It was tough. I mean, I tell you, just being there, like I remember he had like this lock flow. It was like a 17 count or something.
Yes.
And I think I was lost after like number 3. And just for an example, I mean, so when you're new to that and you're jumping in, it's overwhelming. It's really like I much prefer a couple things. They're kind of theme oriented and they interconnect. And but each to their own, and all that. And we got some folks watching. We got Brett from Kentucky. Oh, we got Maestro Raven Floral from Australia, and Spencer G, who will be coming on very soon, if not December or January. Yes, folks, if you're watching, tell us where you're watching from. So when you both of you first experienced, seeing these weapons, you're coming from a traditional martial arts background. So so now you're seeing like your stick, knife, double sticks, spatty dagger. I mean, double blades. What was your guys' initial reaction? I mean, like what resonated with you for an experience seeing these different weapons and then the pairing and intermix of some?
Well, it was exciting because here we're seeing something we never saw before, in as far as martial arts and learning it, in a format system. And the blade work is what we were interested in because you don't like to be cut. You could take a blow on something, but you don't want to be cut.
No.
And then understanding sensitivity, because, they start talking, they blend in with the JKD material too, Jung Fan Gung Fu stuff. And so you're starting to learn the trapping, which we knew trapping, we just grab and punch. That was the thing back in the karate days. But this got a little more technical, and you understand more sensitivity involved. And footwork we had, but footwork for weaponry, just slightly different, because you want to be just out of the way and not get hit. And then if you're using the sticks, you learn how to block and learn how to maneuver. So we learn more about flow because of the weaponry. And then, of course, you translated that to empty hands with the weapon, from the weapon. And so that helped a lot in that aspect. But it took time, and you actually got to do it. I mean, you could watch it, but you actually got to practice it. You got to try it. And it was frustrating sometimes, especially when Guru would show some things on the silat portion. and the maneuvering and the, turning the body and then sweeping, and we're sitting there. Well, I could get it because I could muscle it on Lynda, but Linda's going, she couldn't get it, because we didn't understand the intricacies of the mechanics, and everything, and how to turn and all that. That took a little while to get that. And at times at seminars, we'd ask Rudan to come up and do it on us so we can feel it, what it's like and what's he doing. And sure enough, we'd miss something, but we felt it.
Right.
We didn't see it, we felt it. And that made a big difference. So that enhanced us a lot.
It is a lot. No. I mean, like I said, especially if you're coming from a classical traditional background, which I did as well. I came from Taekwondo, and I was just, I was amazed and definitely immersed in it. But at the same time, there were some frustrations, just because you're trying to get it. Then you got to find people to like kind of work it with. And at the time, I didn't have anybody. I was kind of flying solo, and all that. So it was a tough beginning. I mean, as well as I'm sure you could attest to, I'm glad I stuck it out and continued, and reaped the rewards and benefits from, staying around and being just persevering through it. But it was a tough beginning. It was,
Yeah, it is tough because back then too, there weren't really a lot of videos out and no YouTube.
So you're talking like what, late 80s? I mean,
yeah, late 80s. Yeah, right into there. Yeah, it wasn't until the 90s you'd start seeing something.
Right.
But even then, it was limited.
No, like YouTube came out, but it wasn't like it was the next day. It was just filled with everybody's content. You know what I mean? It was just, wow. So tell us, just for the folks who maybe, of course, know about Guru Dan and all that, but maybe have never met him personally and all that. Like, as far as him as a teacher, I mean, because it sounds like you guys have been with him since the late 80s to present day. I mean, that's a long time. My teacher Burton has been with him. I think it's 79 or something like that. But what can you tell us, just about the man and the teacher?
Oh, first of all, when we'd see him in the magazine, the pictures of him in the magazine, and he always had these mean faces. I didn't see him smiling. And there's pictures with him and see Joe Bruce Lee, and he's getting hit and all those ugly faces and that. But we thought he was mean. So our first seminar we went to see him, we were kind of hesitant to go up and ask if we can sit up front so Lynda could see more, So we asked Dan Timlin, can you ask Guru Dan? He said, no, you can go up there and ask him. So we did. We walked up to him and talked. He was so nice. I mean, he was so, well, sure. He says, I'll try my best, to speak clearly. And he was so helpful. I just couldn't believe it. And he's, just blown away. He's not a type of guy that likes to be a show-off. He's showing you what he has learned and hoping that we pick it up. You could tell that he was so desperate in trying to get us to understand it. And at the beginning time, we first go, he had so many techniques. He'd show like 8 to 10 things at one time. Oh, you can do it this way and then that way. It was mind-blowing. Later, he started cutting it back down. He'd show like, now he shows like 3 to 4 things. But you got to understand him too, because you've got a group there, and there's usually anywhere between 50 to 100 some people.
I know.
And they're all different levels. And he's got to try to please everybody.
I know.
Even when we would bring him out for a seminar here in Michigan, I'd always make the announcement, don't worry if you can't get everything, if you just get one thing, that's fine, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Most people are afraid,
Yeah, I would be. That was me.
But yeah, as far as Guru Dan, he was so helpful, and any questions you asked him, he would answer them for you. He never made you feel like you were inadequate. Yeah, the question was no good. Every question was good to him.
Yeah.
And he was always very helpful. And we
I've heard from Burton and heard nothing but far as like his personality, his giving nature, and how he's approachable and, and all that. So, just amazing because you guys, 80s, 90s, 2000. No, you guys go 4 decades, right? That's
It's a lot. But it's funny because every time we see him, there's at least a little something we learn new. It could be a minor little movement, especially nowadays, just finer points.
If you pay attention.
If you pay attention, right, Lynda?
yeah. If you're in the moment, you're paying attention. That's amazing. Over 4 decades that you could still extract or get something from him. After 4 decades, that's amazing. Wow.
What's also amazing is he encouraged us to go see other instructors.
Yeah, I think he was one of the first ones to really push that,
Yes, really. And a lot of his instructors, of course, they were dying out, Lacosta and all the others. That's why he really not pushed, but encouraged us to look at Muay Thai and the Savat and Edgar Saliti and Mandi Muda. And it was in 90, and the Lameco. It was in 94 when we were picking him up for a seminar at the airport. He said, Dave, I want you to go train with a guy named Ted Buett. And I said, who? And he says, Ted Buett. He says, I says, well, okay, when we go to California, we'll go. I said, no, he's here in Michigan. He's in the Detroit area. I said, oh, you have a phone number? No. You have an address? No. So just look for him, you'll find him.
Just go to Detroit and you'll see him.
He says he'll enhance your stick work, And it's a system called Balintawak, and I never heard of it. Balinta what? I forgot what it was. And so it took me about 6 months before I actually found them. And it just so happened one of my students was going to a Japanese class in college, and he met a guy that was in the Eskrima, and he told me about it. And then he found out this guy's instructor was Ted Buett. So I thought, wow, what a coincidence. So, they gave me the information. I called on Ted, and I had to go to an interview one-on-one. He was very traditional about that. And go to his house. And he wasn't that far. He's about a half-hour drive from here. And Lynda was with me, and we got to talking and find out he's an engineer also. And I'm an engineer at the time. I was still working, and he was still working. So we're talking about engineering and then about, Balintawak and what he's looking for and the type of students. I think we talked for what? 2.5 hours. And finally, Lynda just says, when are you going to start training? So he says, okay, next week, let's start. And that was December of 94 when we first started with him.
Wow, you guys started. Wow. So I just want to back up.
Sure.
You mentioned, Lameco. I'm assuming Lameco came before you started doing Balintawak?
Just a little bit before, because then we were actually doing both of those parallel.
Both of those at the same time. Okay. So I guess it's probably fair to say you got exposed. I know you mentioned you would go to a different state to see Edgar, but your first exposure on Lameco, I'm assuming, came via the academy or exposure from Guru Dan?
No, actually, it was through the seminar that Keith Witowski had in Indiana.
Okay.
So we went there because Guru talked about him, but we found out he's there. Let's go there. And he was, Guru Edgar was so nice. He's another nice person, but he's tough. He can really go. You don't clown around. If you're going to go hard, you'll go hard.
No, I heard. Yeah.
He was a tough guy, but he was still nice. He explained to us about the training. He'd always make you go through. His seminars were easier to follow because whatever he showed you to work on, he gave you about a good 5 minutes, 8 minutes to work on.
Oh, to work it. Okay.
Yeah, to really work it. And his whole philosophy was to really work those basics over and over and over. The Laban, the roll, we had single stick and dagger, double stick, even some empty hand, mano a mano he had. And it would go over and over. And he always told us this story that he worked so hard on working those sticks. And he was still, at the time in the Philippines, he was working in a factory. And he'd swing those sticks so much, he had calluses on his hand big calluses, thick calluses. So he'd go to a grinding wheel at work and grind the calluses off.
Wow.
How much training he was.
So wow, this is interesting. So the time frame that you're referencing, he hadn't moved here yet then. So this got to be late 80s.
Well, he was telling us the stories in the 90s when we met him about what he had to go through.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we would ask him sometimes about, well, let's jump ahead, let's get to the next move. He says, no, not till you got this down pat. Because he was really stickler about your abanicos, that they really had to come all the way around, in the air.
Where they were actually pointing.
They have to point and hit the point, so you really have to move your elbow to get it out there. And he told us another story, because he was good at some stories. He was wanting to learn more. And he went, I can't remember which instructor it was. It was Illustrisimo or the one for Caballero.
Jose.
I forget which one it was. But he said what he did was he saw his instructor teaching this guy. It was a new guy teaching him. And then he goes and he hides behind this pillar watching him to see if he can learn some stuff new. And he's seeing new stuff that he never saw before. And he was kind of upset. And he sees his instructor and says, well, you showed this guy this and that. And he says, look, this guy really not interested in learning the system. He just paid me some money and I showed him a bunch of techniques. I want you to get the fundamentals and the basics all down pat. So it was a good story, that he came
Yeah, right. I mean, like here he is, he's thinking he's missing out on all this specialty stuff, but in reality, he's the one that's really getting foundational, pieces and all that, which will, led obviously to his greatness. So what did you, for you to want to go deeper into it? I mean, what did you see in the system that really attracted you, that want to continue?
Well, I liked his flow, his Laban road drills he had. I think they were easy to follow. His numbering system was set up for sparring, and he had a little bit of sparring too. He had the pan pads and stuff, so he'd spar with the soft sticks. However, his soft sticks are very hard at the tip, so you really have to wear the armor for sure. And it wasn't until one day we were in California with my student Chris, and we went to Punangru's house. Now, Lynda and I had been to Punangru's house, his first house he had in California, which had this big yard and everybody would work out, so the group would work out. So we had privates with him there. Then he moved out towards the desert area, and brand new house, in a nice garage. So my student Chris and I went over there, and we're thinking we're going to learn some more Laban row. And he says, no, it's sparring day. And we're like, oh my God. So he had to have a helmet on and all the stuff. And we were padded sticks still. But that was interesting to me because there was a lot of leg shots they were doing. Most of the time you practice drills, you're all up high.
Yeah.
And they did a lot of leg shots. So that made us really aware of the footwork. Punangru was big emphasis on footwork too. So we really had to use it there. And it really came in handy.
Yeah, you're seeing this coming at your knee. I mean,
yeah. Especially when they're faking to the head and you're up here blocking, and
then all of a sudden they drift onto your leg and you didn't hang your leg, and you're like, jeez. So I mean, with exception, so when he came out, I mean, and all that, obviously you mentioned all that, but what else? I mean, was there a particular, like, as far as the weapons are concerned, that he taught you? Was there a particular weapon that you really liked learning from him, or that you thought he kind of really specialized in, or was able to relay the information really well? Because his curriculum was real good. He had a very good curriculum how to follow, and it was excellent supplementation for what Guru Dan was teaching us. So, like, even now when we do sombrata, when Guru Dan has us go up in front of people doing double stick sombrata, I put some of those Lameco Laban in there, Laban rope drills in there, and mix it in with the sombrata, which Guru loves. That's what he wants to see, that you're learning other stuff. And that's what we like, because it's a little bit different
what Guru Dan was showing, but yet it was still the same. You know?
Mm.
He put a lot of emphasis on how to hook sticks, to knock them across and hit back, and it was very impressive. So really, I liked his single stick, stick and dagger, and double stick stuff.
Yeah.
The empty hand stuff was good too. It was sort of limited. He does Huba just a little bit different, but it's his application to it is you want to catch you in the elbow for an arm break instead of just tap and hit back. So
okay, all right.
Yeah, so he catches it like that, and then you have to toss it over. If you're on the inside and catch it, you got to toss it over. So he really teaches you stuff. And I liked a lot of his self-defense techniques he had for the knife.
Mm.
He had stuff, because he's talked about how in Manila they just come up to you, on a bus and come up next to you with a knife and say, give me your money or you'll have to donate some blood.
Yeah.
So he showed us a lot of good stuff when a person's right next to you, how they put the knife in you, how to get out of that, counter that, and what to do if they grab your neck, put the knife in front of you, how to handle that. Very good self-defense stuff he had. Excellent.
I think that's a lot of that stuff on his DVD sets there. Some of the old original videos, I think some of that material's on there. Where he's kind of sitting next to somebody and they're, I mean, it could be like you're on a bus, for instance, and all that. But everybody I talked to about him, I tell you, it's like he came over, he just hit America like a storm.
Yes.
I mean, I know coming through, obviously, if you come through the academy and Guru Dan's, giving you high praise, I mean, that's gonna be good. But he seemed to really just really hit it, when you came in here. I mean, the private students, I mean, just, what do you think it is? I mean, if you had, looking back and your experience with him and tenure with him, what do you think it was attributed to? That he was, perhaps you could say, intoxicating, or his system, or him in his system,
Well, it's the way he was presenting the system and showing you how to apply it for actual combat. A lot of his stuff was so geared close to contact. Okay, although they had a lot of drills, but the drills helped, because when we started sparring, boy, we're using the techniques from the drills. But the difference was, when you spar, you got to understand the timing, right, and reading the person and setting that person up, which you don't always do in a drill, right? And when to move in, when to move out. And so stuff like that you don't get that well in a sparring, I should say a drill situation. So the sparring is important to get in. You don't necessarily have to clobber each other. I mean, you got a lot of good safety. He had good safety equipment, which was nice, so you can hit. And he'd gear it so that, you can get in there and really do it hard or nice and easy. He didn't have everybody just keep clashing. He matched people up pretty good, with experience. But even like I say, his on the road drills are combative. So even though you're doing a drill, you would use those moves in a combat. And so that's what I really liked about it. And he flows so good with it. Even at close quarter, Lameco exactly means 3 different ranges, right? The A is for largo, and the ME is for media, and the CO is for corto. So he took the first 2 letters of each range and put it together.
Very, very clever,
Yeah, very clever.
Yeah.
And his stuff, he had a lot of illustrissimo motion in there. So you really learn how to use the sword and move and around. So good at that.
Yeah. His KI, I think, from what I understand, in talks with David Gould, that KI was the last component to be added as far as the 5 major systems. And, getting to this, and all that. And, apparently PJ Edgar was just amazed by, GM Illustrissimo and his ability as far as reactionary fighter, and all that. But, did he ever, so when you're learning from him, as far as the system, did he break down kind of this comes from here? Did he bother to do that, or
Yes.
that was the focus?
Yes, he'd always say, okay, this is illustrissimo, and we go through it. It's Caballero, we do it this way. And he'd show where some of the Pikiti moves are in there, because he had
Yeah.
Pikiti as the background. He had some Balintawak in the background, but it was through a Willison lineage, different lineage. And because we asked him, he says, my student and I would ask him, oh, what do you think of Balintawak? He says, very good up close. You don't want to be there. You want to stay long range. He says they're weak on the footwork, but that's just the beginning part of Balintawak. The footwork's there, But anyway, he had an honest opinion of it from close quarters.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, like when he trained, it does the same thing I've heard too when he spoke on Dose Paris, with Cat Coy, like you don't want to be there. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's his game, you know what I mean? So and all that. But what did you like about far as the Caballero like lens and that material? What stood out for you as far as that, being the blunt weapon translation?
To me, it was the idea of going in and out, changing your range, long range, short range, long range, short range, because you want to try to get in and get out. Some of the things that we trained with that. That footwork, the Caballero footwork was the same thing as the JKD step and slide. It was the same exact thing.
Yeah.
And the Illustrissimo footwork was what Lacosta's system would be the lateral triangle footwork. So it's the same thing. So we weren't not learning anything new, but it enhanced what we already knew.
Right. Yeah.
The difference being now you have a stick and you're going in with the stick, coming back out. His blocking methods were nice because if you went in and hit, you come back out covered. A lot of guys that were in Lameco did go into the full contact fighting group.
The Dog Brothers.
Yeah. And he was, Edgar was very heavy on this, what do you call it, Hambak Paiwas, which means
Hambak Paiwas, the quarter turn.
Yeah. And boy, that really made a difference too. When someone charging in,
get off the tracks. Yeah.
Yes. Out of the way, prevent them getting tackled.
Yeah, it's funny you touched upon something I want to go deeper into, and I don't see this. Like all the systems I've done or trained in, I never seen this word used until I got into Lameco, and the word recovery. It was the first time I heard that word and how emphasized, it was as far as his curriculum, like, recovering, whether you're recovering back with a strike, a block, but at least recovering your center. And did you experience the same thing? Did you feel that was something that he heavily emphasized with his students?
Yes, it was, because part of your drills were like that. When you go in there, you'd hit, you come back. You'd step out, step in, and go in. And yeah, the recovery was there, and your stick was always ready. It's either in center. Sometimes his hand would be in center, and the stick was off to the side. Because you had 1, 2, 3 positions in the open side to hold your stick: vertical, horizontal, and low. And then on the closed side, you had 2 of them down here. So yes, the recovery was you're ready to hit. Even though your stick may be off to the side, your hand's in center line so you can hit back. He was teaching us a lot of how to be next to a bag and just hold your stick horizontal and turning your body and whipping real hard to get the hard strike with the stick, which really taught you to use your body mechanics a lot.
Yeah.
Follow through with the hit instead of just using your arm only. That was one of his practice he made us do on the bag.
It seemed like it
was very effective.
The power he could generate, it just, everybody says that,
I don't know if you've ever seen he has video clip. I think he puts it on one of his Live on the Road videos at the end. When we went to his house one time with some friends, and he showed us these video clips of him back in Cebu when he was younger. Now he just moved, boom, 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 boom. And he says, well, what do you think? I says, yeah, you should put that on your videos, at the end. And he did. He put it on at the end. So if you get, I think it's Live on the Road number 2, I think.
Okay.
Part 2. At the end, you'll see how, boy, he would move. And just nonstop. Very, push the guy and hit him.
Yeah.
People were near him, And Edgar would tell us, we're learning disarms, but he said, this one master would come up to me and says, I'm great at disarms. I can disarm anything. And Edgar says, well, let's see. And then Edgar was staying at long range. The guy couldn't get in.
No.
So he made a very clear point. You can't always.
No. They've shared something similar like that, to him, say, look, if guys are going to leave their stick for their, yes, you can do all their magic and all that. But the moment that sucker's moving, man.
Yeah, it's very hard.
Yeah,
And Guru Dan says the same thing. Don't try to get a disarm right off the bat. Of course, unless you're hitting your hand and it goes off.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Either the guy's got to be tired or you've got control of his stick and his body, then you can disarm. Otherwise, not a fresh guy who's moving.
Yeah, right. I mean, don't look for it is what I was, treat it as incidental, you know what I mean? And we got more folks watching. We got, hey, Jeremy, we got Chris Husband from North Carolina. Oh, we got Guru Tom, and we got Robbie from Portland. All right. Yeah, folks, you jump in. Tell us where you're watching from. Smash the like. Oh, Julia stopped by, said a quick hello. All right. Terry from Stockton. All right. Yeah, it's just, I don't know, like, what I remember here's what first really caught my attention of him. I remember getting Mark Wally's book, and I remember going through the book. First, illustration mode just captivated me. I just reading about him and what he did minute hour to that guy. I just was like, but I remember coming up on PJ Edgar's section there and reading it, and my immediate thought was like, this guy is the JKD of FMA. The way he took all these different systems and compiled them and formed his own system, I'm like, this guy's like the Bruce Lee of FMA. It really stood out to me, like what he was doing. Would you agree on that, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think that was his approach. He told us that he was trying to learn from all these different people. Some of them he learned a lot, and some he didn't, just learned a little bit from them. He came out with a book, Punam Guru. He came out with a book where he went and interviewed all these different.
Yeah, tough to find.
Yeah, very hard to find them,
Yeah.
But it was a great job on the book he did.
Yeah, I got one of them. I think the book you're referencing, where he does go through the masters there and all that, but the other two I just can't find. I just can't find them. Yeah, I tell you, there was clearly something special about him. I mean, everybody I talked to about him, or just what I've read, and I mean, clearly, it's just so unfortunate of his early passing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but
that was a surprise, because when we did a test in Ohio with the sword techniques, me and my student Chris and Lynda, we went in there and we're doing all this testing, and we had to do some knife self-defense too. And at the time, he was having a little bit of a headache, and he said he was a little tired, but he tested us, went through it, and so we got some of the video of that. And it wasn't too long after that. I think that was in the November. Yeah. And then he had to go. Then I think it was December that he went to the Philippines. And then that's when he had the aneurysm and stuff.
Yeah, such a shame. Ugh.
I know it was, and we went to see his wife, and she explained to us that they were afraid to put him on an airplane with that aneurysm because of the pressures and stuff.
Okay.
They were afraid of that, so that's why they stayed there in the Philippines. And they didn't have the best doctors there either. She was upset about it, but she was nice. We'd go see her afterwards and talk with her, and she made some vests for us and stuff.
Oh, okay. Oh, how nice. How nice. So when you tested, like, when you started seeing the KI aspect of Lameco and all that, what did you enjoy about that? And then I guess we'll get to the test. What stood out for you as far as the KI aspect of Lameco?
When you say KI, meaning what?
Illustrissimo. I'm sorry.
Oh, Kali Illustrissimo. Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
I liked it because of the sword work.
Yeah.
the footwork was there. It teaches you to get in and out real quick and how to use the sword. And with a stick, of course, you've got to hit more, right? The sword, you don't have to. You just got to cut. You can hack if you want, but he had a lot of good pop. You just pop and come around and cut. And it was just so fluid and so smooth, and I liked that. That was really neat. And Bert Richardson is doing that too. He's doing a lot of that. And and I think we learned a lot of Illustrissimo from Punam Guru, because he really put a lot of emphasis in that one. He seemed to like it.
Yeah, I mean, from my hear, I mean, he loved it and all that. And then, so when you guys go to sort of rank out for him and all that, was the test more on you guys showcasing particular stuff from each of the systems, or is it?
Well, he had a list, let's say a double stick. There was a whole list of things we had to perform with the double stick. They were drills, and then we have to do some Laban the row with it.
Oh, okay.
To show that we knew how to move with it. And the footwork, you wanted to see that footwork in there.
Yeah.
So it was really good. The double stick stuff, I think, was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I know.
We actually got very close to fighting, because you're hitting and parrying and slipping and moving. And the double stick. You do it with one hand, then come back with the same hand, or you do it with one hand, come back with the other hand. It was very good. Very good.
Yeah, wow. So, all right. So you touched upon now you Balintawak. So Guru Dan kind of advises you to go seek out this guy in Detroit. Go find him. You'll see him on some street corner. And so you do find him, and what were your thoughts on that Balintawak? Because now what I'm asking, because you're coming from like Lameco, I mean, like, all these ranges, all these different weapons, and now you're kind of going into a close range, blunt weapon. So that had to be different.
Well, it was funny because Guru said, well, I think it'll enhance your stick work if you work with Ted Blood. I said, well, okay, I want that, because, we don't get to see Guru maybe 3-4 times a year. And so I thought, okay, I could see this guy every week, right after work. And so when I started working with him, oh my God, it was totally different. I mean,
I imagine.
Different.
Yeah.
It was.
But Filipino.
But it was still Filipino martial arts. It was single stick. And he explained to me that the founder, Grandmaster Anshan, he originally was stick and dagger. And then eventually his dagger was taken away because he was poking all his contemporaries with it.
Oh, the training partners were getting.
They were complaining left and right. So he
can't imagine why.
Saavedra, who was the instructor at the time there,
Saavedra brothers,
told him, take that away. You just go single stick. So he did, and he developed a lot of the empty hand motions with the left hand from it. And so Ted was really adamant about how we block. The blocking is different. It's a hammer block. You don't push the block. See, like in Lameco, and even with the Gurdan and Sano blend, it was a deflection. This is a solid block. But I remember Gurdan would say, wow, you get a solid block, we can fake you. But the way Ted did it, you came down as a hammer and you didn't outreach. So when you blocked, your elbows close to your body, and you
were still folded in. I got you.
Okay. There, and you can absorb the shock, and then you immediately flip your stick and go somewhere else. On this, having the stick, we come down like a hammer, and your hand is behind it. And once I block, I'm gone. Once I block here, I'm gone. But you have to meet the stick. You don't just come here, and then the stick comes, you're going to get hit in the head.
Right.
So you have to meet and contact the stick, and then my hand's ready to monitor the stick, their stick, your opponent's stick. And one of the main things he put emphasis on with the left hand is the major functions of the left hand, and that was to monitor the stick, manage the stick, and to delay the stick. Those are the three major functions of your left hand. So after you block, you have to get right onto the guy's stick. Now he may move, that's okay, And there's where we started learning a lot of sensitivity. because when the stick monitor, when I monitor, it should be in the web of my hand. Oops, go over here.
Yeah.
And here I can feel if it's coming out. But if it's on my fingers, it leaves too quick. I won't be able to react to it. So here I can feel it. There's no pinching. In the advanced levels, they pinch to pull. But there's no pinching. He didn't put any emphasis on grabbing. No grabbing. Because I want the opponent to come out so I can set them up. And that was the whole idea. Now, if I'm grabbing because I want to disarm.
Right, if you're going to grab, you're going with the intent of disarm. Okay.
Intent is to disarm. It's the only reason you'd be grabbing.
Okay.
Or locking, if I'm doing a lock. You call it trunk. But he taught us a lot of counters to the disarm. So if someone grabbed my stick, you have to learn how to counter a grab, which was a little tricky because it's a little harder to do some of those. But before we got into that, though, it was the proper striking, which you had to use your hip a lot, and the motion. And so we were taught to strike with the stick and stop, just before the person's. So you kept the stick, where's my arm? You had to keep the stick 90 degrees. Here we go. 90 degrees to your arm.
Okay.
So you don't break. You keep it 90 degrees to the arm so you have that control. Now, once you really hit somebody, then you can break the wrist and let it go in and hit them. But it was teaching you a lot of how to get the hip into the strike, heavy. So that was new to me there. I mean, I knew we had to use your hip, but I was used to slashing through all the time.
Yeah, you're stopping, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's almost like a hack, but all the energy is diverted right to them, and then you flip your stick out of the way to do something else. And there's a lot of triangulation into it, and it's why Guru saw this years ago. He saw Ted Butt do a demonstration, and Guru says, that looks like Wing Chun with a stick. And he's pretty right, because when I strike, I usually strike with both hands coming together, so I'm formulating a triangle. And even then, when I go here and I trap, if I trap, there's a lot of trapping involved too. A lot of lifting, which other system called clearing, but he just calls it lifting, and then he calls what we call a Y hand trap. You get the person's arm or wrist here, and you just come down with the Y and hit at the same time. A lot of their moves are moving the stick and hitting at the same time. It's not I move your stick and then hit you. It doesn't work like that. It's at the same time. That's what makes the difference in the timing. When you use block. Yeah. So when you block, you're there. This happens real quick.
No,
the system,
you took a knockout system.
Yeah, it's a knockout system, and we do play with it. Now, the other part that made it a little more difficult was there were no drills. Ted did not believe in drills.
Interesting.
He said, we have to do it randomly. So you do singles. So in other words, I learned how to block and do a low strike. Block, monitor, and hit a low strike. Then after that, I block low, do low strike. If he blocks, what do I do? Then we learn step by step, increment by increment.
Okay.
And then he starts to put it together, and he controls it. Get you to make sure you block here and moves here. And he would be attacking you randomly, though. It's no set pattern. So it made it a little bit more difficult to try to learn it at first. But once you got it, you got it. It was no.
That's interesting that his methodology, like no drills, so no memorization. He's just going to come at you in gradual increments, it sounds like, and you got to respond.
Right. You respond to it. If you did it wrong, you go back and you just do it over again, just that same one over and over. So you do repetitions, right there on a single. He called them singles. So a single situation or a single move till you get it down pat. Right. Then he puts back into the mixing bowl, he called it. And he calls that carreras, which is to mix up.
Okay.
So that's his definition for carreras. And then later he said, as you advance, then you get into what we call iahai, which means to each your own timing. So my timing could be different than yours, and that's how I'll get in. Okay. But when working in carreras, he calls it palakau. I mean, we're trying to help one another learn. We're not trying to beat each other, but I'll get a shot here. I'll let you get on me. Okay. Then we go again. Then when you try to get in, I'll block it this time. And then now you got to respond, or I'll respond to you. So it just builds up like that, little by little. But once you do it, you're constantly learning the correct way to fight, right away, immediately.
Yeah. So, and just the fact, no drills, man. Like, I mean, that's very interesting. I would assume, there would have been drills. You know what I mean? Like if you didn't tell me that, I would assume that.
Yeah.
Wow. So, so you're trying. I mean, like, what made you want to go deeper with him? I mean, basically, kind of what you just mentioned there. Anything else, as far as him, the teacher? Well,
this is what's interesting. See, we're learning Balintawak to Balintawak, and eventually I started asking. Well, after a few years, I said, well, what about this? In the sound system, we'll do this, or Lameco does this. How do you handle that? And he would show me Balintawak-wise how he'd handle these different moves from another system. And that impressed me galore because his timing was so good on that, minimum amount of effort, and motion. Lynda was watching us train one time because he only does one-on-one. That's all he does. And Lynda was watching, and then Ted asked Lynda, "Oh, what do you think?" And Lynda said, "Oh, you guys are moving so fast." Ted looks at me, we look at each other. We weren't moving fast. It's just that we were quick enough to know exactly where to move to in each of the motion without wasted motion.
So timing versus speed, maybe.
He never liked this, going back like that. He said, that's a wasted motion. Flip this tip and then go in, but not bring up like that.
Okay.
Back instead of going in. Sort of like a wind up before you hit.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Flip here and go.
Telegraph. Okay. Yeah.
Right. A telegraph. But everything I'd come up to show him, I don't care what it was, something from Lameco, would it come down, hit the hand. He had a counter to it. And I'm like, man, I'm sticking with this guy.
No, that's excellent.
Minimum amount of motion. I don't have to tire myself out. I was so impressed with it. So I understand why the footwork is limited, because the idea here is to crash you and end the fight. If I have to trap you with my hand or trap you with your stick,
right
on your, either of those. So it was real quick. Like that.
Yeah. I mean, right. I'm assuming to finish this. We're gonna show a vid here. I'll lower myself, and I'll show it. Then maybe you can just walk us through.
What you saw at the beginning there was a lot of the fundamentals that you have to learn. And the fundamentals you have to learn. You have to learn numbering system, and then the fundamental would be the countering of the numbering system. So you would extend the arm, so you learn how to block the arm, because somebody might be attacking you long range, so you come in close and hit the arm instead of the stick. Block the arm. So that's the fundamentals, and they're probably the only thing that's sort of a formatted method.
Okay.
How you block each one of the numbering systems, and then after that it becomes creative.
Where's that was random? Okay.
Random, right?
Oh wow. So if you in short, most people when they hear Balintawak, I don't know this for certain, but I'm assuming they associate with Bobby. I could be wrong. But do you see and I guess, what would be the compare and contrast as far as what you do versus maybe other Balintawak sanctions? Is there a difference?
Well, the difference are the method of blocking and a little bit on the method of hitting. And they don't use their left hand as much as we do. They won't see them monitor the stick as much. They'll do clipping, which is they catch the stick and clip. That's good. We have that also. That's part of the management. And they use the what they call grouping system for training.
Yes.
And that's sort of like it's a sombrata set, right? Each group has got movements you have to do and that. And they're okay. I think that's good for somebody that's brand new and wants to learn something and feel some accomplishment. I think the group is good for that. And so this route is a little bit on the harder side. Ted was not too keen on the grouping because he says it's teaching you bad habits. And it's true, because when I started to play with some of the other people, when I'd come in and I'd throw the stick, I'd got their stick controlled and I hit them, they're coming up with their hand. And they're thinking I'm going to throw a punyo, but I'm not throwing a punyo, I'm throwing a stick. So their hand kept moving, and they'd hit their hand.
Gotcha.
So they developed a certain response to moves, which they got to learn how to adapt it. It's got to change. It can't be the same thing all the time. And this is kind of what Ted was teaching us. One day I was in class with him, and he says, and I asked him a question. I says, well, what about this? So I have to make this move to make this adjustment. He said, Dave, did you watch that Bruce Lee special yesterday on TV? And I said, which one? So he explained it to me. I says, yeah, I've seen that. He says, Dave, we're like JKD in the sense that we always got to adapt to what's happening.
Okay.
The same thing all the time. And his response to me too is, if someone throws at you and you do a technique on them, you never do the same one every time. Because that way you keep them guessing.
Right.
And eventually we get into what he calls the lances, which is our setups, or Nganyo, which is used in Lameco.
Oh, the fake. Okay.
So you fake the shot and go over to another spot, which is progressive indirect in JKD. It's the same thing. So, Filipino martial arts has a lot of progressive indirect attacks.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Tons of it.
Yeah.
And it's really emphasized here with this. And and then you have to learn a lot of slipping, which is tough, because at close quarter, this stick comes whistling at you, and if my stick is tied up, I better learn how to slip my head.
Yeah.
And you really learn how to slip in this art, which you don't see with the other systems as much.
Okay.
Yeah. And another part of it is too, because Ted Boot was sort of a loner. He didn't really want to promote it that much. He kept his own little group and kept it that way. Where Grandmaster Bobby Tawawada, he publicized it a lot more. I mean, he really
seems to still do. I mean, he's definitely
there's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And they look at us as, well, okay, you're just another version of Balintawak. And a lot of them don't know, because the first stringers of instructors under Grandmaster Anchan, which is Ted Boot was one of them, Villison, they had some of the stuff Grandmaster Anchan taught them, but they didn't show it, all of it, down the line. They didn't get it all, especially the monitoring in the hands and stuff. They just didn't have it. And a lot of it, because I was still training, the only person that's still alive is a man named Jim Boy Heffy. He was a student of Ted. When Ted came here to the United States, he started training with Anchan and stayed with Anchan until he had to go to he went to Air Force training and was flying big cargo planes after a while. But he trained with Anchan every day for 3 years after he was with Ted. So he came down here to visit Ted when he had a stroke, and so he was showing us some stuff too with Anchan was doing that went on. And Anchan would always complain, saying, "Well, Villison, he's changing my system." And he said, "What do you mean I'm changing?" He says, "Well, he's not doing some of the stuff I showed him." And I asked him why not. He says, "Well, because we're trying to keep it secret." And Anchan says, "If you keep it secret, it's going to die. The art will die out."
Yeah, right. How are you going to spread it? Right.
And, but then again, those in those days, they're trying to compete with all the other systems, Dosipars and the others. So they would use abanicos and everything in their moves because they'd say, hey, look, we got the same thing, come to see our school and all that. It was a competitive thing for school.
Yeah, taboo.
Right. And we don't do abanicos. There's no abanicos in our stuff.
No, I've never seen abanicos in Balintawak. Right.
No abanicos. There's no roof blocks. You never really point your stick down. Your stick should always be in an upward position unless you're hitting low or hitting something to block it low. But everything's done up here. So that means a lot of body mechanics, your body leaning and stuff. There's a lot of body shifting, weight from one side to the other. And it's interesting too, because with Balintawak, if I'm going to do a backhand strike, my weight has to be on the back foot. I'm doing a forehand strike, the weight has to be on the forefoot. Okay. Now, what we've learned from Insano and others was because of sword. If I'm going to cut through, I shift my weight over as I come in through with the backhand, and I shift my weight this way when I come in with the forehand. But that's sword because you're slicing through.
Slicing through.
And so then Ted told me, he said, Dave, he says, we're not trying to slice a tree down, we're trying to chop the tree down.
Right.
That really made more sense to me. And then when you start learning how to keep the weight on one side when you're hitting and one side here, that's exactly what we do in Wing Chun. Same thing. You cover and hit, your weight's on that side, you cover and hit, the weight's on this side. Exactly. So you can see the similarities there with Wing Chun and this. And I did a little seminar for Sifu Francis Fong on Balintawak for his group. And Sifu comes to me and says, Dave, that's great. He says, yes, most people understand you got to put your body behind it, and like a jop sao in Wing Chun, it's a cut like this. It's not just slapping with your arm. Behind it, And that's exactly what we do in Balintawak. So he was so excited to see the similarities.
Oh, interesting. Wow. That is interesting that, the parallel and all that. Wow. So when did you jump into your school? When did you decide, or when did you open the school, and what was the inspiration?
Well, we wanted to still train, but we still wanted to teach people and spread the art. I mean, that's why keep it to yourself. Why not spread it, share it? This is what Guru Dan wanted us to do. Share the art. Don't worry if someone gets better than you. So what? That's supposed to be a compliment. If your student gets better than you, great.
I think so.
Yeah. So we did, but we were working at the time, both of us full time. He is an engineer, Lynda, computer programmer, analyst. And so we didn't go into investing money into a building or anything. So we taught out of our house. We fixed the whole basement up so it'd be set up that way. Enough room, so you can handle like at least a dozen students. No more than that at one time. But people would come. So at first we were teaching like all these arts mixed, and everybody's, well, what are we doing today? I thought, you know what? We're going to have separate classes. This is going to be Muay Thai. This is going to be Jun Fan. This is going to be Wing Chun. This is going to be Bali, and then a separate one for the Balintawak, because Balintawak is a little harder to learn. So that's how we did it, and we did it like that. And it was easy being at home, less overhead, and all this. We tried looking into other places, but it was tough because as the economy was getting bad, it was hard to find a place. So we thought, a lot of places were closing down. So we said, forget it. We'll just stick here at home. And then we started offering lessons for people at schools elsewhere, like in Ohio and up north in Michigan. Okay. And so we developed an affiliate program. So we come and do seminars over there, and they'll come to us sometimes to do 4-hour privates, and we worked it out that way. And so we're still offer people, if you want us to come out, we can do some stuff in the Balintawak too, because Balintawak's a little harder, but you can still get the basics of the blocking. And the hitting with Balintawak really helped me with the Sinawali hitting, because most people are going pop, 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 pop. Yeah. But when I'm going, man, your body's moving, and hitting like that, it made a difference in the impacts. So
Oh, because you're shifting. I mean, like you're really shifting in.
Yeah.
Okay.
In your body weight. And that's, we're with Rick Fay in Japan, and same thing there. He says, we got to get more hips into it and more body language into it. Because after a while, people start doing this so much, you get into that bad habit of just using your arms.
Got it.
And and Guru Dan was also big on that. And of course, so was Edgar. He wanted you to shift your body here and step out this way. So as you step, you're turning your body. So, excuse me. So, they all seem to blend. You start to see the coincidence of how they come together.
Yeah, yeah.
Arts, but they still have certain principles that are the same. So when we teach, and as we're advancing, some of the students that are getting really good, I'd say, okay, you still got to do this technique. But we've done this technique before. I said, yeah, but you don't really have the technique. And they have a little trouble understanding that. And so I said, well, okay, the example I give, and I say, well, look at the objects here on the table and everything. I want you to just look at it with one eye. Look at everything here with one eye. Okay? Now look at it with both eyes. What's the difference? He said, well, yeah, you're seeing 3D with two eyes. You see a different depth perception of things versus one eye, you're seeing everything in 2 dimensions. So as you're learning a technique, you want to get a deeper dimensional feel of what you're doing with that technique. Am my body getting in right? Is my timing right when I have to move and shift the hands and move? Am I doing big motions or am I doing little motions when I do that technique? And if you see all these other systems, Pikiti's the same way. You start big motions, then you got to learn to make them smaller. Same thing with something that's called a curl. When my hand comes here, I got a curl around my stick. Well, if I curl like this, it's a real big, tumultuous motion, right?
Yeah.
Or advanced, you just curl real small, like that. So, all things advanced, they become smaller. And Wing Chun's the same thing. If you're doing a Hun Sao, you don't go wide like this. You go just your wrist coming around.
Right.
Chi Sao, the same thing. Chi Sao, most people are wide like this, but later Sifu's telling us narrow, make them
narrow. Okay.
Like that. And what do you have in Hubud? Hubud, we got the big Hubud for beginners.
Yeah.
And he calls it seeking the path. I call it baby Hubud because it's real small. And it's the same principle. You're doing smaller rotations of your hands.
Just smaller movements. Okay.
So when I see Guru Dan move, all of a sudden I see him going like this, and his hand came up and he's trapping. I thought, how did he do that? It's just because of the smaller motion.
It was just a smaller movement of that. Okay.
Yeah.
So with status quo, as far as your teaching, do you still have the same setup? Everything's kind of individualized, with the exception. I know as far as your FMA goes, do you kind of lump the ensemble, blend the Lameco together, and then you're still keeping Balintawak separate? Is that?
Yeah, I do keep the Balintawak separate. And sometimes, depending on some of the students, they're doing both Balintawak and the ensemble blend and Lameco. I put the Balintawak in there because you can do some Brada and then put Balintawak right in there. Just right in there, trap and then trap. And it fits beautiful. It's beautiful. It's a way of recognizing what's going on and then boom.
And then insert it.
That's one way to see. I can tell if the student really understands Balintawak because they'll know just at the right time when the hand should come in and trap and maneuver or manage the stick.
Okay. All right.
It's easy. It's not that hard to use, when you're doing some Brada, but it's fun.
As far as inserting it. Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Well, you do that too, right? We do some Brada with the stick and dagger, right? Somewhere times you have to insert the dagger, right? So Balintawak helps you with that aspect because you learn how to insert.
That's a good point. Yeah, that makes total sense, right? If you're inserting the dagger, what would be?
Right, and sometimes the kicks come into play too. There's kicking in Balintawak too. Most people don't know that.
Okay. I can tell you when I'm one of them. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, they got stomp kicks, side kicks, front kick to the shins. Everything's down at the shins and the knees.
And then low. That makes sense. Okay.
A lot of it.
Jeez, wow. I knew like some had hitting empty hands, but I didn't know.
Yeah, there's some empty hands. Ted tried. I asked Ted, you know Hubud? Oh yeah, Hubud. but he'd just show me the application. He'd catch it like this, and then he'd go into some application right away, which meant to tie and then untie.
Untie. Right. Okay. Right.
So,
wow. So then, how much? So, I guess a question I received here from somebody is, how much emphasis is put in FMA as far as your curriculum? But I think before he asked this question, he didn't realize you separated things and all that. So I guess the best thing to do is I can kind of change it. What's the frequency of you teaching FMA? Do you teach a couple times a week as far as classes?
Yeah, we have the way our schedule's set up. There's 2 days out of the week where FMA is in there, but then in one day it's called an open day or open class, and in that class I ask people what they want to learn, and a lot of them want to do the panantukan, the empty hand stuff. So what I do is I get them with the knife first, so they go through the jab, cross, and hook with knives in both grips, either grip. And they go through that. Then we go through the empty hand portion, which could be anything from the hubad to just techniques from jab and cross and things like that, and spinning, pulling, and then we slip in the dumag. So we got the pulls and pushes.
The pulls and pushes, yeah.
Right into your entries and get into the entries right away. Take people down. Linda's really good at it. She gets in there so quick and boom, And she demonstrates it. The students are sitting there going, "Wow, what the?"
Yeah, how that. Gee, that's so. As far as now, what would you say? I mean, as far as your students are concerned, do you think more interest in do you have more that are interested in the Balintawak versus your blend of Inasano and Lameco?
Well, a lot of people like the Inasano blends first because you can see easy to swing and things like that, right? Where the Balintawak's a little more, it seems slightly mechanical at first because you got to make sure you have the right block and hitting correctly and twisting. Later, you learn how to make it more fluid. You block and move and block and move. Like you saw that one demo of me just doing it solo. And now every time my hand's moving like this, I'm doing something. I'm either monitoring your stick this way or moving your stick that way. I'm doing something with my left hand. So then it becomes more fluid later on. So that's why it takes a little longer. But most of the students like the Inasano blend in the Lameco. They literally like Lameco too because of the flow back and forth.
Yeah. I think it's hard not to like that. I mean, yeah. I know. Jeez. What you also, you touched and just folks. I think this is really admirable of you. You make it a priority. It sounds like to teach handicap. What can you tell us?
Yeah, well, of course, my wife being that way, you get more aware of a situation where the person's going to have trouble. Now, we've had people with cerebral palsy that have trouble. Now, some of them, they get to walk, but they have trouble with footwork. That's not a big thing for them. So some of them, depending on how bad it is with them, one's a bodybuilder guy, but he can handle himself pretty much in the feet. But the certain moves like triangular footwork is a little bit tough for him. He can do it, but not as well. So we have to readjust things for him so that he won't fall. His biggest fear was if he fall. If he fell down, what am I going to do? So he wanted to work on pushing. If I pushed him, how do you handle a push? Which is part of your hubad thing. Remember Guru Dan was talking about the Dallas Cowboys, how they trained.
Right, Larry was good. Yeah.
That stuff works real well. That's perfect for that. And he likes that because he feels more confident now that he can stand up and handle himself. That's really important. And then I had one guy, we used to have one guy who had, this is funny. He had, his arm was cut off to about here, right at the elbow here. So he had this thing, just this part, and the other one was normal. So he wanted to learn JKD, and so he was able to do the kicks real well because his feet were fine, but certain blocks and traps he couldn't do, but he would parry stuff. And we taught him how to parry and then go in and stop the arm instead of just parry it and make this other hand. He couldn't do it. So what he would do, he'd parry this off, hold it down, and he'd run in and like do an elbow shot. Of course, he doesn't have this part, but it's an elbow shot. So we had him for that, you know. So he learned how to use his upper arm for the techniques. Then we taught him how to trap it, then put his upper arm on it, and then now you can hit the guy or pull the guy's head or poke him, whatever you want to do, and then knee, whatever. So it's the same stuff like when you close the gap, grab the head, punch, but he would grab the head and sort of do like
a portion of his arm. I got you.
Yeah, put it right into the throat or whatever. And then he can come across and push their head down, and he could still do those putter kapalas.
Okay,
So
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Like this and go like that and flip them around.
Yeah,
so
interesting.
So you had to learn how to adapt everything for them to make it work for them. So the more you understand the principles of how things work, the easier it is to work with a handicapped person.
Right. Okay. No, that makes sense. Yeah. I just think it's great what you guys do. I mean, you know, just given where maybe other schools wouldn't even give them the opportunity, you know,
Right.
and all that. You know, so I think that's pretty special. You guys do that. You know, that's awesome. That's really good stuff. It had to be rewarding for them. I mean, I mean, as well as you guys. You know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's great to see their accomplishments and seeing how they feel confident in themselves. You know, the self-esteem.
No, you know, as opposed when they first walked into the door and you know, seeing the evolution of that. Well, that's got to be wow.
What happens? A lot of these guys come to me and they say, you know, I tried at regular school, but they're forcing me to do things the way they do it, and I can't do it. So they come to us to help adapt it for them. You know, change it around. Even the grappling too. You know, the one guy that has trouble, but he's learned how to handle stuff, come in close, move around, and we have to show him how to move his body around, even though he couldn't use his legs that well. So he had to really learn moving the hips, but he planted his knees on the ground and then move his hips. So, you know, it's challenging for us too, because we get to see, you know, let's see if we can get this to work, you know. It's great. It's a good feeling.
No, that's incredible that you guys do that. I just think that when I was reading your website, that really stood out to me. You know, like, wow, you guys go out of your way to do that. And like you mentioned, some of the other schools are going to either, you know, try to make them do it their way, as opposed to you guys, what you're doing is you're actually catering to them, you know, and taking what they have and making the best use of it, you know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, there's one person we used to listen to was a man named Jim Rohn, passed away a few years ago, but he had a lot of good sayings and stuff. And he said, you know, self-esteem comes from engaging in the disciplines that lead to value. So we try to use that as a guide when we're working with students. You know,
I like that. Wow. Okay.
Help them see that the disciplines you're doing are leading to something of value to you. You know?
Yeah.
And that's why we call ourselves attributive martial arts, because we're trying to build attributes through you, through these different arts. That way, if a guy wants to do kickboxing, okay, we'll build your attributes with kickboxing. You know? Right.
But I'm guessing also you're not just the physical attributes either. Sounds like you're also
right.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of mental attributes, and with Kali in that, there's a lot of coordination for your mind. You know. Double stick especially, and then you have
crossing midline and
the right brain, left brain, and you know, there was an article I saw where they were talking about people who overcome dementia, and one of the best things for them was to do ballroom dancing, and the reason for that is because you have to learn steps, right? You have to learn to work with a partner. You have to learn the motions to move around, where to guide the partner to, have watch so you don't bump into other people. And so you get your brain working, your body working together. And I thought, geez, aren't we doing that? You know,
oh my God, right. Double sticks.
Oh, it's footwork and triangles and same thing. You know?
Yeah, totally same thing. Totally. They just probably, obviously, ballroom dancing, they're going to think of that before, you know, Filipino martial arts, but 100%. I mean, it's.
Yeah.
So we kind of touched on it already. What do you try to, overall, what do you try to instill in your students? I mean, as far as their journey is concerned, and whether regardless of how long they're staying with you or whatnot.
Every student has a different reasoning for coming in to do the martial arts, and we try to find out what that is. And sometimes that changes, as they're training. There's one that comes here. He just wants to be in shape. He said this is his health plan to come here and work out.
This is my health plan. That's good.
Yeah, for health reasons. It helps with cholesterol and everything. And and others are just want coordination. I had one guy who was in the 70s. I think he was 70, and he came in and he says, I want to do the footwork because I want to be able to maneuver around. As I get older, I don't want to lose my balance or anything. So, I said, well, I'm 71. I can help you with that. It's not a problem. And they enjoy that type of thing. They can't sometimes go a far advance, like some coordination drills are too much for them. So you give them simple, maybe just an X pattern. Then you introduce, simple footwork, for them. Because if you try to throw them too much, they're just, just like we did when we first set up.
Right, they're going to get disinterested. Yeah, it's just overwhelming.
So it's like everything. You got to piecemeal it. There's another good saying I heard: people don't care what you know until they know that you care. And that's a big difference. If they can't see that you're really trying to help them, they won't stay.
Yeah. Right. If they're not seeing if you're genuine and you have their interest at heart,
Right. That's true. That's just the way it goes. And now also we had another saying we use. I forget what it had to do with doing extraordinary things. People think success is doing extraordinary things. And success is really doing ordinary things extraordinarily well. That was something else we learned from Jim Rohn. So I thought those apply so.
Yeah, that's so true, right? Yeah, like if you're doing ordinary things and you're doing so efficiently and so well, what I mean?
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what Punam Guru was trying to explain to you. The same thing. Same principle. And it helps. It helps whenever you're teaching to understand principles. The student may not get that right away. They want to see the technique. So you show them techniques at first, and then later you show them a couple other things, and they say, "Well, why should I do it this way or that way?" And you say, "Well, because if you do it this way, this is what it will happen." And then they start to say, "Oh, I see," start to pick it up.
Right, the principle came to light, right?
Right.
So, but this is absolutely wonderful. What are your future goals for the two of you as far as your personal journey, your system, school, all that?
Well, continue teaching. I mean, we love doing it. We like spreading things out and staying in shape. Our personal goal also is just to make sure we stay in shape.
Physically fit, sure.
Guru Dan always talks at seminars. Every 5 years, as you're getting older, you got to change your training. You got to change. Your body changes. You got to change your training. And we're finding that too. We're not spring chickens like we were before, but we still keep at it. We still kick, still punch. Guru's happy with us that we're still able to keep ourselves going.
Yeah.
And that's an important part. So the whole idea is to be an example also for other people to see that, hey, we can do it, you can do it too. And at the same time, it's helping ourselves to become better.
People are seeing that.
Working with others helps you, believe it or not.
Yeah.
You work on yourself. When you work with others, you start to see, well, am I a good listener? Am I a good speaker? Am I a good demonstrator or whatever? And you won't know that till you get the feedback from somebody you're working with. And that's important.
Yeah.
And that's how you improve all the time.
No, definitely. All right. You have to, right. You have to get feedback and then take the constructive criticism without taking to heart and trying to prove upon it, right. To make a best version of yourself.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
absolutely. Wow. 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 Well, it sounds like you guys are definitely achieving your goals. I mean, like did you guys get hit by COVID terribly or?
COVID came around. We're next to Canada in Windsor. So we had some students from Windsor. They couldn't come anymore.
That's right. They couldn't come home.
So we had a few students that had to stop. And some of them, they worked close by, but they lived farther away. So when they were working, they'd come right here for training and then go home. Well, now they're working from home. So they're farther away, hard for them to get over here. And so we lost there. But there's more students now coming back. So we're doing okay. We don't have a lot of students, but we've done a number of students through the years.
No, that's fantastic though, that even through the year that you're still decent retention and you're still going.
Yeah, I mean, we see Rick Fay too every so often, and he's impressed with us, and we help him with his group. He's got a few people here local, and we work with him too, and keep him going.
His name keeps coming up to get on too. I got to write his name. Rick Fay. As far as coming on the show,
super great guy.
Yeah, I heard nothing but great things about him. Absolutely. Well, this has been absolutely wonderful. I appreciate you guys coming on. I mean, this has been great, and all that. What I do is I download it, and then I'll post it to your wall. They download from YouTube, and I can even send it to you via Messenger, whatever is easiest for you to share, and all that.
Yeah.
But this has been great. I just think what you guys are doing, just with the people with challenges, that you guys are willing to work with them. I just think that's so special. That's you guys, obviously you guys' heart's in the right place for sure.
Oh,
so.
Yeah. We love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is good to meet you.
Oh, absolutely, and thank you. Yeah, thank you both. Coming on. I appreciate it. I hope we didn't take too much of your time tonight, but
no.
Okay. So then, well, you folks take care. Again, thank you for coming on. And gosh, I'm due to go to I might be going to Minnesota actually. Brandon Ricketts is we're playing a tour for him, and one of the spots I think is Rick Fay's.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not set in stone yet. It's but
sure.
Yeah, but that'd be neat if that does materialize. If you guys, I don't know, it sounds like Rick's not that far from you.
He's a little bit away. It's about a 12-hour drive if we have.
Oh, 12? Oh, okay.
Oh, we could fly there. We get there quicker.
Yeah. You told me 12 hours drive. I'm flying. I'm not driving. Yeah.
Well, we have to pass Chicago, so that's the bad part.
You gotta go around the lake. I get
it. Around the lake and go.
Oh, okay. I see.
It's a long. If we were able to go right across Lake Michigan, it'd be shorter.
You guys would be good, right? But you gotta go down and around and up. Okay, that makes sense. Wow. Well, yeah. Well, keep your eye on it for that. I think it's gonna happen. I think it's just a question of when. So,
yeah, sure.
But,
well, thank you for having us on too.
Oh yeah, my pleasure. Oh my gosh, this is what we're about, getting everybody on here, that tell their story, tell what they're doing, So yeah, absolutely, for sure, But you guys have a good weekend, and you guys take care. Appreciate it.
Have a good Thanksgiving.
Yes, you too. I know. I can't believe we're already there. I know.
Yeah, very close.
I know. Well, you guys take care.
Hey, see you.
All right.
Bye.
Goodbye. All right. Okay. Yeah. Who's next? I believe Tom has somebody this Sunday. I believe so. And then special episode Tuesday, Bill McGrath, me and Bill McGrath and Tom Pena. We're going to be going over NBA against Knife. So kind of a theme episode. That'll be next Tuesday. All right, folks, if you haven't, again, Christmas raffle, some really good stuff in there. Bram Frank is donating 8 knives, 8. So obviously, for $5 a ticket, you can, So, but yeah, that's all in FMA discussion and all that. If you got questions, you can PM me, and we'll go from there. But really good cause. All our money's going to the Philippines. We've got a couple charities picked out already, as far as all that have to do with children. So again, if you could, something you could do, it's $5 a ticket. Again, but if you look at some of the prizes that were donated, some really, really great stuff. All right, folks, thanks, and I will see you next time.